Hello there! Welcome to the first of a series where I'll be looking at games from the perspective of a Japanese language learner. If you haven't already, please take a look at my channel trailer to get a quick idea of what I'm planning to do with these videos. But to put it simply, I'm playing games in Japanese and seeing how they hold up as language learning tools. And first up today, we're going to be looking at Okaeri Chibi-Robo Rich Happy Osouji, also known as Welcome Home Chibi-Robo Rich Happy Big Sweep. This game is the third entry in the Chibi-Robo franchise, developed by Skip Limited. And arguably, this game is the last decent one in the series, seeing as the latest endeavours have been less than stellar. Though Ziplash did give us this lovely Chibi-Robo amiibo, so I guess it does have some value in the bargain bins. But those of us in the West missed this entry in the series, likely due to the number of poor release and marketing issues that have marred this series since the first game. Ergo, it's a great candidate for some region-exclusive motivation. Also to its advantage, it's a game that is on the DS, a nicely region-free console, thus it's easy enough to play should you manage to get your hands on it. It's worth noting that a fan translation has been made for the game too, so if that's more of your jam, I'm sure that's of great quality. But for now at least, we're only concerned with the Japanese version. For those of you who aren't familiar with the series, Chibi-Robo is all about cleaning. You play as the titular small robot as he navigates the house, picking up trash and scrubbing off grime. You'll also encounter the toys of the house, often solving their problems and relationship dramas. This game's big new feature though is the custom-made vacuum cleaner, which allows Chibi to add cleaning dirt and dust to his repertoire. He can then convert his collected rubbish into electricity for the household, because his owners aren't in the best position monetary-wise and struggle to afford it themselves. Speaking of, the second big goal of the game is to help Jenny, her son Keith, and their dog Lucky out of minor poverty and into a more comfortable living situation. You'd think that any logical family wouldn't pin their hopes and dreams on a high-tech Roomba, but the expectant guilt-tripping stare they give Chibi at every family meeting says otherwise. Though even Lucky manages to donate to the cause, so I can see why the bar would be set pretty high. So using the money you earn from various sources in the game, you can order upgrades and housewares to slowly improve yourself and the house around you. Between home shopping and cleaning, the game certainly gives you a lot to be doing at all times. Getting into the language stuff, let's go over the basic details. There is kanji in the game with no furigana to help with reading. The dialogue is relatively basic though, so the highest level kanji you'll see is probably around an N3 level if you're going by that scale. If you've got a solid grounding of N4 level kanji though, you should be well set up not to be stuck in a dictionary every 30 seconds. Also of note, there isn't any proper voice acting going on, only gibberish sounds to accent characters speaking. If you're looking for a listening practice specifically, you'll need to go elsewhere. A key part of playing games in Japanese for practice, rather than simply playing one, lies in comprehension. If you don't need to understand what you're reading to progress, your brain is less likely to care. In my opinion, Okaeri Chibi-Robo falls in the category of having a low amount of comprehension difficulty. The visual cues are usually sufficient to point you in the right direction, and if I ever did get stuck, I found that comprehension was rarely the issue. The series has a bit of a tradition of obtuse progression flags. And when it comes down to it, wandering around and going about your business will likely result in you stumbling across what you need anyway. As is common in a game as whimsical as this, a lot of the characters have unique linguistic quirks. This often comes in the relatively harmless form of a syllable at the end of a sentence, an example being Ketchup saying "beh" at the end of a majority of his dialogue. Some, however, are a touch more intrusive. One of these comes in the form of my own personal annoyance with the Japanese language, also known as onomatopoeia. It's one of those things that in language classes you're always told is just a learn it in your own time kind of deal. So I didn't. Though in my defense, they're awfully confusing, their meaning is often isolated to one specific context and then the next time you see it the meaning is completely different. Anyway, personal vendettas against specific classes of words aside, the characters in this game love using onomatopoeia. Jenny loves saying pafu pafu for seemingly no reason, Iberiko will use a variety of pig-based sounds littered throughout his sentences, and your flying assistant Tompi manages to bring out a seemingly endless amount of different ones. So as you might see, there's some good onomatopoeia practice to be had here. Learning to identify the difference between a word you need to know the meaning of versus a word that just adds a bit of flourish to the context is useful when playing games, thus I'd say you'd be well set doing so here. Another particularly strong speech quirk comes from the dust ghosts who hide in the house. They speak exclusively in katakana, and this is a common tactic in Japanese media for making alien-like speech seem more foreign, so it suits well. I'm not sure how easy it is for native speakers to read this, but it's certainly a challenge for me. The expectation for katakana words generally being English words written in Japanese. I'm sure other learners would agree that there's a weird extra layer of effort to be reading as if it was hiragana. If anything, take it as an exercise in normalizing katakana recognition. All around, the dialogue is relatively basic, but has a varied vocab set, making it hard to pin down. You're probably looking at something like an N4 to N3 level, but as long as you have the basic N5 grammar and vocab, you should be set for a steady balance of understanding and dictionary time. On the other hand, if you're just playing the game with no Japanese knowledge, you'll find the game is still incredibly enjoyable without understanding anything, but you'll likely need to look up a guide a couple of times to get past the more cryptic plot triggers. Okaeri Chibi-Robo leans more into a gameplay-focused experience, and you can, for the most part, wander around doing your own thing and make it through the game pretty easily. At times, the dialogue can be pretty skimmable, and the game won't really keep you too accountable on its own. On top of that, the script being as wacky and onomatopoeia-filled as it is, it's not a great example of natural dialogue. That being said, I believe it's a fine game to use as a starting point for playing games in another language. The gameplay is the draw, with the dialogue accenting it in a way that fading in and out of engagement won't shoot you in the foot. Think of it as a neat training ground to build up your skills without much risk of ruining the experience. So all up, great for early on game-based practice, but likely loses its learning luster further down the track. I've said it throughout the video, but I think this game is great fun. It's definitely as good as the first two games, and likely better in some regards. Cleaning the house and helping the family is addicting, and once I had finished the story and 100%ed the whole house, I was still very much itching to keep going. The plot takes a turn for both the zany and heartfelt all at once, and it's a nice complement to the great gameplay, though the characters and their silliness might get a bit grating at some points. Ultimately, Okaeri Chibi-Robo is a very enjoyable and surprisingly robust game for the DS. Thanks very much for watching. I hope that this was informative in some way, and if you've got any suggestions of things you would like to see, game-wise or topic-wise, please don't hesitate to say. Well then, till next time, ja mata!